Ladies and gentlemen, I now call to order our September council meeting. Good to see everybody here tonight. I ask you to join me in a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here together tonight. Thank you for the changing of the seasons. Thank you for helping us make Blackston a town for all seasons and a town for all people. Be with us tonight as we discuss several difficult items. All we ask is that we can agree to disagree and go home knowing we all did what we thought was best for Blackston. We ask these things in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. We now invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we all stood. That's all right.
Oh, I remember that. I was supposed to. I'll kneel next time.
It's great hearing everybody say that, but it's especially great to hear the young lady on the fourth row. That made tonight even more special. Folks, we have a busy agenda. We have a few public hearings. And our first, we'll get right into it. We have a hearing for a conditional use permit at 218 South Main Street. It is the building known as the Pearl Chinese Restaurant Building. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of an apartment which requires 2 off-street parking spaces. I believe that's part of the condition, Mr. Van Olbeck.
This is handled as a conditional use permit or use not provided for, or a special exception permit, I apologize. And Planning Commission did meet after public hearing and recommended approval with 3 items of concern, the first of which was 2 off-street parking spaces would be provided. In addition, they also wanted to make sure the building code compliant, that the project was building code compliant, specifically in reference to ingress and egress, because we have the one set of steps that goes out to the front. They were concerned whether a second entrance would be necessary, and for the appropriate density or occupancy.
Okay. Very good. We are now in public hearing. Planning Commission did recommend this unanimously. Anyone here tonight speak for the request? This is something the town manager has predicted with some degree of accuracy, that we are faced with an increased number of apartment requests. They do require a minimum of 2 parking spaces per apartment. This would comply with that. Anyone tonight opposed to the request? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Manager, where are these 2 parking places going to be provided?
They're intended, the property does include a parallel area which is adjacent to the northern end or the northern side of the property.
Northern side of the property. Not the western side? Not behind it?
No.
Okay. Okay.
It's been proposed, and they were talking about paving it. The applicants are here if they have,
Okay.
it was my understanding that's where they would be.
Okay.
So basically on their property, the two
One apartment,
spots.
2 spaces on the
Okay.
property. The condition is included.
Well, I think some of the adjoining property owners, they spoke to me and they had a problem with where the parking would be.
I'm from 216 next door.
Yes, but what is your, I wish you'd have spoken to the public hearing. What is your name? I'm sorry.
My name's Amy Cox, and I'm with HCC Personal Care, right directly next door at
Podium.
216 South Main Street. And I'm just concerned about where the parking spots are gonna be, because that's our property as well.
Okay.
Right there, that lane right away is our property as well, so I was just wondering where they're gonna be.
Well, I would imagine that the requirement would be that the parking spaces should be on the applicant's property.
That was the intention, yes.
Yes. If they cannot comply with it being on their property, then they'll be in violation.
How are you gonna get there the right of way? How are you gonna get there? Are you gonna move the dumpster? Are you gonna move the light pole? Because other than that, you're gonna have to go on my property. to get there.
That burden falls on the applicant, on the people to live in the apartment. And our zoning official will see that that's enforced and complied with. Good questions. I just had one question. I hate to be an anti-government here. Y'all know me, but in this day and age, are there any requirements about sprinklers in the building? And I guess we didn't.
I don't know if sprinklers are required for an appreciable number of units. I know that Danny Sheffield did some sprinkling.
Right.
I know that the
It's good business.
Dylan Crawley
Right.
building, I think, hits the sprinkling. I don't know the building code requirements, but obviously a building permit is going to require whatever it may be. I don't know if it's one apartment, if it's multiple apartments, I just don't know the rules, but they will have to follow whatever that may be with the building official requires.
But this approval before this council tonight is one apartment. I think I heard during the planning commission, 2 bedrooms, but one apartment.
Well, it began with what I believe was going to be multiple apartments, but they specifically said one unit, 2 parking spaces.
Very good, very good. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Can we, until this thing about access to the parking spaces be resolved, can we really know what we're voting on?
Would you like to continue this to our continued meeting next Monday where we have a joint meeting with the planning commission just to make sure that the concerns you outlined can be met?
I moved the table until the 23rd.
Is there a second? Ms. Thompson, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to take this up again next Monday. I think it looks favorable right now. We just want to make sure that that we can comply with our own ordinance. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Our next hearing is on fire department billing. Our fire department back in March of 16 began billing for services, and I believe the billing agency recommended some increases in the fees. And these are fees that are paid by insurance companies, not the fire victim or the accident victim. Now, if you do a DUI or do something criminal, then you may have, those fines may come out of your pocket or somehow, but this is a public hearing for, I believe what is the percent increase? Is it 12%?
1.5% if I read this.
1.5% a year, but I think it's a 12% increase tonight, and then 1.5% a year or consumer price index, whichever is greater, I believe. All right? Anyone tonight speak for or against the increase in the fire department billing? Chief Tomer told me a couple weeks ago that I think so far they've collected about $26,000 as of a couple weeks ago, with more fees on the books through the provider, the California Billing Company, I believe, isn't it? Anyone to speak for or against? I declare that hearing closed. Any questions of the town manager or the police, the fire chief?
I move to pass this resolution and ordinance as provided in the council package.
Mr. Green has moved. Mr. Nash has seconded. I'll ask for a roll call vote. I believe this is still Mr. Scott's tonight. We're still in October. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. We have a third public hearing. This is something that a lot of folks are really excited about. And this is basically a grant through VDOT for phase 2 of walking. It's basically a walking trail and improve access to the sports complex and the primary school.
First phase begins at approximately the corner of Oak and Birch Street, and we'll go to the intersection of Harris and Birch, and then in the north direction, basically to the location of the volleyball court. That is the first phase. It'll have sidewalks, antique light poles. We have been awarded that grant, and we will begin. You guys authorized me to execute the documents, I believe, in our last meeting. This application, this is not a formal public hearing. VDOT doesn't require a public hearing. This is a public meeting, if you notice. Okay, but we do want to publicly let folks know that we are making application, and this phase would go from the intersection of Harris and Birch to Powell and Birch, north on Powell to Jackson, and basically a circumference around the entire baseball complex. This is the walking path I think that the town began thinking about probably 10 years ago, and this would be the second phase of that application. There is a minimum contribution, and it includes in-kind and construction costs. Basically what we're providing is electric service. We'll be installing antique lights around the ball fields at our expense, and we'd be relocating some utilities, overhead utilities as well. And I think the total amount of $62,550 that the town would be committing with materials and labor.
The total amount of phase 2 is $299, basically $300,000.
Correct.
And phase 1, which we already secured from VDOT, was $208,000, and our match was $52,000 in that.
Also correct.
Which most of which will be in kind and that sort of thing.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir, Mr. Moncure.
I'm in favor of it, but I'd like to point out something.
Okay.
The engineering phase of this is costed out at $66,950. We're getting eaten up by engineering fees planning fees and things like that. I don't know if it's controllable or will.
Well, I think what you can do is look at percentages, and that may always be a better way to look at things. When you build schools, you base it on a percentage. Typically, when you build a fire department, you base it on, and that amount is usually gauged by how big of a project is. The bigger the project, the less the percentage for the engineering. But I want to point out to you that not all this is engineering in that 66,000. If you look at that, the grant administration, those are the folks that actually wrote the grant applications. If you remember, the council hired HDLA Associates, so that's the figure that they would be entitled to. 32,000 is the actual engineering cost. Environmental assessment would be logically done by the engineering firm. Surveying fees, those are construction stakeouts for the most part. Before they come, if you see stakes in everybody's yard, that's a construction stakeout. And the VDOT review charges for 3%, or exactly that. You pay that to VDOT to oversee. Not all of that is engineering. It's roughly half and half engineering and administration costs, not to the town. And then,
Grant administration, $28,000.
that's correct.
I've never had a engineer complain that they weren't being adequately paid in these grant projects. I will say that, Mr. Moncur, you're very keen on
Don't
that.
even get me started. I wouldn't even vote on the contract. That 6 of y'all voted that you don't even know what you were paying for. So anyway, engineering's gotten ridiculous.
If it makes you feel better, that portion is being compensated by VDOT. All of our obligations are basically the electric department and buying materials and the labor to install.
I like to get on my soapbox and tell you when the Armory architect told me we could redo the Armory for $1.8 million with grants, or we could do it by ourselves for $1.8 million. That shows you what kind of nonsense we're dealing with.
Well, we can't do this project for $300,000.
This is just
Without grant.
information, no actions requested tonight, or do you want action
You've got a
tonight?
resolution here for, I move
Authorizing me to,
approve
Okay.
the, Transportation Alternative Project Endorsement Resolution.
I move to approve.
Thought that's what I did.
Well, you second Mr. Green's motion. I'll ask for a roll call because the match is more than $10,000, starting with Mr. Scott. That motion carries 7-0.
if I may very quickly, there is one item that we did not include in your board packet, but there was an advertised public hearing. We advertised in the paper twice for a change to our electric construction guidelines, if you guys remember.
Yes.
Policy and guidelines for electric service. I think Dan still wants to talk a little bit about it. I think we talked some at the committee. At this point, we do have an advertised public hearing for tonight. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to discuss it, Mr. Mayor, if you may want to ask them. I'm not sure anybody is here for that purpose, or we can redo this next month. I think Dan does want some more time.
Well, generally speaking, this policy, if I'm not mistaken, it just puts in writing that which we do, and that is overhead service to your home is free.
Except for, Dan did ask that there be one change, and that's the distance. Right now, we don't have a cap on what the town will do. There's a 300-foot cap now for overhead, single-family, and duplex. Okay?
So when
And
you
that's
go-
why the public hearing was advertised for the
Okay, very
change.
good. Because, well, the county has been very upset with, and I'm not picking on Southside Electric, but they're the main rural provider. There have been complaints that when people build new homes out in the country, those costs of extending power have been increased, and it makes sense. I mean, it costs money to run lines, and it costs the town money to run lines.
The advertised policy did have a 300-foot cap, which is not the case now. So when that came up and Dan wanted to include that, it was fine. But because it was a change, a policy change, we did advertise for public hearing tonight.
Excellent. Anyone tonight have any concerns based on what, now, we also charge for underground connections.
We charge for the materials, the wire that actually goes underground. It's the underground infrastructure. It's not the pole, it's not the transformer. It's the actual wire underground.
Mr. Moncur has a question.
If I have overhead now, and I come and ask you to run mine underground, does that fall under this policy?
Where you read it on the underground portion of it, you would pay to the town, not the labor, but the materials to put your service underground, the wire.
I could ask to have mine brought down from overhead. As a matter of right.
As a matter of right, but you're obligated to pay for the materials to do that, the underground portion of the
That was my
materials.
question. Are we gonna see a rush to get underground lines?
It's been the same.
It's
If
just
it's a
the way it
hurricane
is
coming,
now.
maybe.
The way it is now. Anybody can request underground service at any time and pay the material cost for the wire that goes underground.
The town would rather see underground simply because they don't have to keep trees and limbs and stuff off of the lines.
It's just harder to repair if it goes bad. That's all.
But someone told me that while underground looks better, that when you have, obviously, when a tree falls on line, you can say, there's where our power's out. Where if all of a sudden a block goes dark and they've got underground cable, it's like, well, where we start digging.
It's easy to see a tree limb at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're riding around with Dan. It's pretty easy to see what the fault is, rather than, oh my goodness, we've got to get a locator and try to find where the fault is.
Yep. Anyone have any concerns or questions about that, which you just heard? We're not going to adopt anything tonight.
Not
Are we gonna have to re-advertise, or is this gonna be sufficient for the
I
public
would
hearing?
re-advertise. I think it was not in the packet. You guys didn't have a chance to look at it, and I would just re-advertise it.
Okay. Well, it sounds very good. But we'll move forward with our agenda then. Thank you, Mr. Norbeck. Moving right along, we have visitors. 2 on the agenda. The first is, it's that time of year, it's the Chamber Christmas Parade. April Wright. Fine, how are you?
April Wright with Chamber of Commerce. How are y'all?
Great.
The Christmas parade will be on December the 8th. Your packet, there was a letter that requests basically 3 things. Your street closures, when the town hangs up the banner, to waive the fee, and a donation to cover typically the cost of bands.
What did we do last year? Was it 750 or 500? 750 last year. That was up, I believe, from the previous year.
I move to approve all 3. That's the street closure, waive the banner fee, and $750 donation.
Mr. Tucker has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Perfect, thank
The
you.
magic of Christmas. I love it. Maybe we can get Harry Potter to come this year. And next up we have Mr. Lewis Johnson is on the agenda. Last time I saw Mr. Johnson, he was outside his food trailer.
Good evening. everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'm up here tonight about my business, Taste of J's. It seems like when I got my business, like the rules and regulations and stuff, everything want to be changed from how it was in the past. I'm a mobile unit, just like the ice cream trucks, all these trucks that come to town to be selling food and stuff. I should be considered in the same category because I'm a mobile unit. But you are trying to have me something to do in the business area when the people can come on my door selling food, selling steaks and stuff, and knock on my door, ask me to, I wanted to buy some. But I don't have that same authority like they do.
All right.
It's hard because you don't have a place for me to set up at, like Southfield have a place for mobile units, mobile trailers to set up at. If it weren't for Mr. Egerton that owned the lube place up here, I wouldn't have nowhere to set up in town, and I pay taxes. These people that come knocking on my door, they don't even live in Blackstone
That's correct.
and don't even pay taxes. So why should the rule change now when I get a trailer? At first, want no rules, want no regulation or nothing brought up. But when I came, tried to go by everything right, man, rules and regulation want to come out the woodwork.
We found all kinds of codes.
Yeah, it's not right though.
It's
From what I
not.
believe, the
We have some changes coming, Mr. Nash.
the committee has met, and we are going to suggest a change of, you can set up anywhere as long as it is not Main Street, Blackstone, anywhere in the historic district of Blackstone. So it can't be Main Street or the 1 block off of Main Street.
It's not you, it's everybody.
Anybody.
Yeah,
So
you
that
know.
means you can park in front of my house if you wanted to. You can be in the residential districts, you can be wherever. So,
Okay, because I mean, because we brought my attention about Main Street. I got a 14-foot trailer. I would take it up to.
Right.
There's no way I can park on Main Street with a generator.
You have brought to light, Mr. Johnson, and it hadn't been easy on you or some of the local officials, you have brought to light several things that we have not been doing just in the haste of being a daily operation of a town. We have kind of let our guard down, and the good thing about all this is come January 1st, we're going to be clear, consistent, and we thank you for that. We thank you. And,
Don't forget, I've got 5 acres that's zone BG in Blackstone. Come see me.
but we'll have more on that, but I believe, like I said, I think the $500 fee will stay for the same for everybody.
correct.
But we're going to be precise on everybody can locate the same places. There'll be one area, like Mr. Nash said, where no one can locate. Because we don't want, the restaurants do have an investment, and just like you have an investment.
Because I got over 30,000, I mean, it might be pitty change to you all, but I got
That's a
over
big,
$30,000.
it's very impressive what you've got there.
Invested in my project.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Johnson? I think we're gonna get this thing wrapped up here this fall.
So, I mean, I probably won't be ever setting up in Bearwood's parking lot, so that's off limits. I mean,
It's in the historic district.
Historic district.
Right. But there's several other parking lots, for example.
I got a question on that now.
All right.
Okay, Bobby always get Yodas to come down every year during the winter time for the donuts and stuff. Why should you penalize somebody for making money and the public crazy about Yoda donuts because we're gonna make a rule up now? I mean, at first it haven't been no problems at all, but now we're trying to change stuff to make quote unquote a restaurant owner happy because she don't want my business in the parking lot. And we're trying to make her happy.
Well, here's something we can do, folks, again, and this is just thinking out loud. I don't want to burden this meeting. We got a full agenda, but we could, you mentioned South Hill. Could we not, this would be up to the council, prohibit the historic district from all these folks, but maybe have the town-owned municipal parking lot as a place of refuge where these folks could line up?
At a particular date and time where everybody can come.
Yes.
Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday night, whatever it is.
And it could include this parking lot back here.
He's not really laughing. You're gonna get a bunch of these requests.
Right.
Ultimately, there's gonna be these. If that's the right place, or it's behind the town hall, whatever it is. But I think you can think your way through having dates and times when it's available. And he wouldn't be the only one. The owners can set up, or whoever can set up on a certain day. Maybe that becomes a tourist destination, or it becomes more of a draw in the town.
Right.
And DBI or the chamber can take it as a project.
The key, Mr. Johnson, you just raised just then another innocent oversight that I presume is innocent. I think it's innocent oversight by the town. And what I think is important that we don't do is we don't make policy based on, well, they're popular, so we want to make a rule for them, or they're, and all this you're bringing to the table is a favor you're doing for blacks. It's going to make us better, and I thank you. It's blown me away when I look back over the last 4 or 5 years, because I've had when people come to my door, first thing I say, have you got a business license? Well, I'm like, see ya. But that's just me. But a lot of folks are like, hey, it's a good deal. I don't blame them for buying the steaks. But we thank you, and we will have more on this later. But we're going to be hitting the ground running January 1st, clear, concise, consistent. Are we not?
We are.
Okay, very good. Mr. Wayman Mitchell had a point. Thank you, Peanut.
Did he charge anything for what he's doing now?
$125. We prorated Mr. Johnson, and we also instructed anyone else that's riding the streets now, they too must be prorated at $125 for the last quarter of 2017 if they have not already paid. Am I correct?
I have a couple things right fast. The Blackstone the Blackstone Police Department cookout's gonna be at Brown and up here behind the Circle Sales. Did this be the last one for the year?
What date did you say, Mr. Mitchell?
Tomorrow. I'm sorry.
The last one.
Last one this year. But we're gonna continue our Cough with the Cop at McDonald's. We're gonna set another date for that for next month.
Okay.
Also, we have the Blackstone Ministry Association is gonna have a cookout, have a family friends day celebration at the park on the 4th of November. Anybody want to see a copy?
November 4th.
Starting from 12 to 4, 12 to, we'll make sure.
Where is that gonna be?
Steve Hart.
City Park. From 12 to 4. And we're gonna supply all the hamburgers and hot dogs, and you bring a covered dish, like the old-fashioned way we should do it.
Very
And just
good.
bring the community closer together also. So I think last time at the cookout, I missed the last one because I had surgery, but this time, the last one, I'd like to see the town council people come out and show your face if nothing else. And thank you. God bless all.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. This is the third year of the community cookouts by our police department, and I was talking to some folks. Our police department is light years ahead on community relations and some others, and we're grateful. And you've played a big part in that.
Yeah.
You've played a big part in that. Any other visitors tonight on the agenda? They're not listed. You'll have a second opportunity at the end of the meeting. I see none, so we'll get right into, you have your minutes next. You have your minutes from the regular council meeting of September 18th and the continued of October 4th.
Move to approve, dispense from reading and move to approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Those minutes are approved. Next up, we have our fire chief, and he's here with a busy packet, and it's Fire Prevention Week, and we've had some pretty big fires. It was Fire Prevention Week.
Busy month. First action under old business is we opened up the bids today for the command vehicle. Our,
At your desk, I believe.
Oh, my goodness, this has been the $20,000 truck with a $60,000. Just playing.
low bid came in at $55,699.
Okay.
This was one of the original bidders. It was cheaper than his original bid. But it wasn't as cheap as the first original bid.
Which was around 52, 51, something?
52,
What's the dollar difference?
About 3.
yeah, it was 52,981 to 55,699.
Because we rebid it.
Because there's a rebid.
One company went up over $20,000.
Well, I didn't ask that when it bid it once at one price, then bid it right after that. That's designed to try to get it lower, not higher.
Certainly agree.
But they knew that the low bidder was going to be out of the picture. That's what gave them a little
Low
cushion.
bidder also bid from the first time. If you remember, they gave us a price for $52,000 if we would make a significant deposit, 25% deposit if I'm not mistaken. And rightfully, I think council rejected that bid. We rebid it. Their competitor is now the low bidder at 55. He dropped his from the previous time we bid. The people who were the low bidder the first time that had the deposit requirements and all that, they came back in at 71,000.
Oh, so that's them at 71, okay. They were, wow, so they just gained 20, just increased their bid by about 20 grand.
And they claimed that there was a math error in their original.
Everybody makes math, there's they bid Blackstone jobs.
I move that we approve of the low bid.
Amen.
With the stipulation that the extra money that was added to the bid, the $2,500, whatever it be taken out of the council discretionary fund and not the fire department funds.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Nash has moved. You've heard the motion to approve the low bid, but make sure the $2,500.
It wasn't the fire department's fault that the bids went up, is what I'm saying.
All right. Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion? Don't all jump in at once. Folks, I beg somebody to second that motion. We've been going, thank you, Mr. Scott. This has been going on, and we need to get this truck outfitted. I'm sorry, I'm sympathetic to the fire department. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
That's too much money.
I'm sorry, your roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, council. Thank you, council.
Open house was a great success this year. Once again, weather held out for us. We did attend the Southside Firefighters Association. We won 3 trophies. You notice the Engine 3, one of our oldest engine, won a trophy, and that's because it was the only one in that class.
Don't say that. That's like when I win a race in the 50 to older, man. It's like.
Looking forward to the Bull Blast. We're doing a Halloween dance with Mitchell's coming up this month. Assistant Chief Bears is doing the Truck or Treat on Halloween. We've been pretty busy with 2 of our members, firefighter Greg Tanner, and then we had a slight scare with firefighter or life member Arms.
I saw him today.
He's doing well. He's at home.
Great.
Yep.
He was driving his truck.
He's still not supposed to be going on fire calls, but they released him to drive this weekend.
And Mr. Tanner, how's he doing?
He, according to Facebook updates, is responding. Had surgery yesterday or today. Had another surgery today.
Long road, but I'm hearing positive things. It's just going to be gradual.
He, as we do every year, I'd like to go ahead and work on the process to purchase turnout gear out of our capital outlay. This is $20,000 that's allocated annually, and this is the time of the year that we start.
I don't see the need for a motion. Just common consent.
Common consent, proceed with getting bids.
Good deal. And then just approval of our officer slate.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to approve the slate of officers that you have in your packet. Glad to see that our chief is reelected handily. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief Tomer.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have our payment of bills. The first batch not yet approved is $634,052.08.
Go ahead. I second Mr. Nash's motion to
Motion
approve.
been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
On the first,
That's my second.
I'm sorry, on the wrong batch.
I have one about truck body company, truck repair, insurance claim. Is that Andre's truck? Okay.
Insurance plan.
That was not the town's fault.
Just for you, for the council's record, I noticed BB&T Financial, FSB, paper, tie, that's our town credit card that we use just to, accumulate various items. It just struck me. I thought y'all would like to know what that was.
Very good, thank you. Hearing no other questions about the first batch of bills, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. And our second batch, $452,432.88.
Move to approve.
Is there a second, Mr. Green? Mr. Tucker is seconding the motion. This is where, Mr. Moncur, you had at least one question?
On the first page,
All right.
on the very bottom, the town gun shop, $769.30, Vision Vest Arm, whatever it is. I just,
They normally just pile a lot of stuff into.
Yeah.
We can get you.
We had a police officer here.
He had to leave.
Probably new gear, but your procurement, I noticed it too, Mr. Moncur, but with our town's new procurement policy, I didn't
I can pull the invoice and find out.
really question it.
All right.
I noticed it as well.
Yeah, just those things are curious from time to time. Any other questions? Mr. Scott?
Page 4, $1,035.50 for batteries.
I think batteries.
HBS Central Virginia.
Under what department?
It's under the garage.
Garage.
department.
Oh, yeah, at the very bottom. IBS Central Virginia.
What kind of batteries was that?
It wouldn't take many of them.
For the generators, I believe, it's a bunch of them.
It is.
Okay.
Batteries are gone up significantly.
Okay, got another one.
All right, Mr. Scott has another question.
For the garage, Jones Electrical, $123.75, geothermal heat. And then on page 5, Ronald L. Boyd Electrical, replace pump for $305. Then you go over page 7, under the bus, Ronald Boyd twice, and Jones once. Is that all for the same thing?
It's the same invoice for the Jones and the Boyd, is the way we code it. A portion of it goes to the garage, a portion goes to bus. But correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, didn't Jones, they come out and they evaluated the same piece of equipment, but we got Boyd to fix it?
Correct, Jones Electric was a road call. Boyd Electric was the one that actually did the repair. One of our circulation pumps in our geothermal unit went out, causing all the office. There's two separate units, and the offices are on one. The rest of the buildings on another, and all the offices went out. So it was like 100 degrees in our office for 2 weeks.
I forgot that the bus shop does use geothermal. That's outstanding. That's great. I forgot about that.
I noticed throughout the bills that we're starting to fill propane tanks. Have we bid that out?
Everything we do, we bid out.
I assumed you did. It's just this particular company
If there's something not bid out, then it's a mistake.
is usually not my low bidder.
We've got official procurement policy we adopted at the auditor's recommendation, so
Well, the propane is usually maybe once or twice a year, and it's just for the heater at the bus shop, so it had gotten, one tank was empty and the other one was at 20%, so we went ahead and filled it when all that storm was supposed to be coming through.
Philip, it's high bills because I see Colony Construction. Is that the reason?
I think the majority of the high bills of this construction that you see ongoing, some reimbursable, some not. If you notice the bills haven't been paid, $634,000, that's significant as compared. But I think you've got a lot of drawdowns from Harmon, H.A. Saunders and H.G. Reynolds and all those kinds of things.
I noticed that too, but it's 170. It's not is left. You start off at 452, but when you the pass through, you end up at 170. And
You get
that's
the leaf machine and construction, skewing the numbers a bit.
Mr. Scott, you feel satisfied with the? Any other questions about these bills? We have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott. Motion carries 7-0. Members of council, I beg your indulgence. Could we skip? The young little Miss Knight over here has been so well behaved, but the hour's getting late and it's getting near her bedtime. Can we take the night's insurance claim up next? So y'all want to sit here what could be another hour? We have under unfinished business number 2, the night's insurance claim. And when we last left the topic on October 4th, we had agreed that maybe instead of not throwing a suit or talking about a lawsuit, to ask I believe the contractor, Davis and Son or Davis, if they would be interested in maybe making some sort of good faith gesture. What is the latest on that matter?
I spoke with Mr. Davis, and Mr. Davis is not inclined to do so.
Okay. Well, members of council, it's been on the agenda for a while. Do you care to make a decision tonight? And if so, what is that decision? Or anybody have any questions of the manager? I know that one point that was made to me over the weekend, and I just want to make sure this is factually accurate. The homeowners, when grant projects are approved, before work can be done on their structure, they sign an agreement where they hold the town harmless. Is that true? Okay, I wanted to make sure we got that on the record. I heard that outside of the meeting. I wanted to make sure that that was entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Jesse looked at them the other day and before last meeting.
Okay. But it is still, like, as we also discovered at the last meeting, the check that was, there's a signature on a check that has your signature, my signature, that's used to pay Davis and Son, because it was a town project. It's tough on members of council. What's your pleasure? The Knights are seeking $1,500 to reimburse them for the television and the furniture that was damaged when their ceiling collapsed in August on 3rd Street. Is there anything else that the council can, Ms. Thompson?
I was just gonna ask, what can we do?
You can do, I think we agreed at the October 4th meeting, it is at the discretion of the council. You can say yay, you can say nay, you can say, you know what, 1,500 is too much, we'll meet you in the middle. You can do anything.
I'm just worried about the precedents that it would set, say if Mr. Scott's home has the same issue, then the town's just, I mean, we're gonna obviously have to continue on with the same issue, same deal of compensating.
How old was your sofa, Mr.?
Can I just speak to the council 1 second, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jerome Knight.
Just like I said, good evening, each and every last one of you. Thank you for allowing us to come out once again. But the issue, the only thing I would like to say is, you know, it may not be a lot to some of you all. It might be a precedent that you are, you know, trying to keep from setting. But you know what? Right is right. You know what I'm saying? And, I mean, if we were just to go and had that kind of money, we could just, you know, blow this whole thing up and just, but right is right when we can just sit down amongst each other and work something out and come to a common agreement. I mean, listen, if a contractor comes to your house and like he comes in and fix my light fixture, like I'm saying, I'm a 52-year-old man. I have no reason for my light fixtures to be falling out of my ceiling after having construction done. I have no reason for the heat pump that he installed to be broke down 3 months later. Then I even have to call him and talk to him. I mean, by setting this, maybe we do have to set a precedent, and maybe we do have to hold the contractors to a higher standard, and the building inspector. Well, they just don't walk in people's houses and look at the ceiling and say, okay, this good, and walk out. Maybe we need to set a precedent today. I mean, right is right. I mean, no, I don't have much, but it's mine. And, you know, and I just want anybody coming in there destroying it. I mean, just like yours. I mean, if you pay someone to do something, like the town of Blackstone paid this man to come in here and do an adequate job to our home. He did a job to our home. No one wants to say it, but it almost killed somebody in there. I mean, because if we say it's his fault or our fault, listen, we got to pay. But if all of us have deniability about it, hey, listen, it keeps on going, and maybe it does happen to somebody else. And maybe it's not just the roof. Maybe the whole house burns down. I mean, but we don't know. But some kind of way, we need to start today. And not all, you know, that's what the town council is for. not only just not look out for but also look out for the individuals that are in town. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
All right, thank you.
Also, we didn't come here to bring this to anybody's attention for any sympathy or anything. It's just that we are hard-working citizens, and my husband and I, we worked hard for what we had, and for that.
I just bought it.
Just to collapse, and we are, like you said, over 52-year-old, we have health problems now, with joints and muscles and stuff that we can't go out and just purchase everything brand new again that we had just bought.
Right.
And it's not about sympathy, but it can happen to the next person too. If
Yes.
attention is not put to somewhere.
Well, I do think if there's anything positive that comes out of this, besides the fact that no one was injured, is the fact that I can tell you this, that housing grant projects in Blackstone are going to have extra eyes and ears because of this incident. Even though we don't have any tangible proof what caused it, common sense has got us on high alert, I can assure you that. That doesn't, high alert though, doesn't take care of your furniture and your television, you understand?
And yes, they did, we did sign agreements for them to come out, but they came door to door knocking, asking us, do we want to be a part of this project? And we agreed yes, but they came to us, it's not like we went to them and said, well, we want y'all to do this work for us and be a part of this.
Right.
They knocked door to door and asked the community, did they want to be a part of it?
And part of the reason they do that, and you're exactly right, and part of the reason that's done is for a grant to have any merit to being awarded, they need to have that high participation rate. And so, like I said, but you're exactly right. Members of council, this is a tough one. I don't envy any of y'all. What is your pleasure? The council speaks through its motions.
Before we vote or make a motion, I still have to say what I said the last time we talked about it. While I have utmost sympathy for this situation, the town is not a party to this. And our insurance company has declined any responsibility. I don't see where I can vote to take anybody else's money out here and give to somebody else when there's not a tangible responsibility to do so. I understand the concern and I just understand the concern on the part of the Pattersons. But that does not,
Give me the Knights.
that does not hold the town responsible any more than the town of Crew has a responsibility.
Okay. Mr. William Mitchell, yes.
You know, when Constant Wind had this project going years ago, she had me to help her, and I inspected some, because we didn't have any inspectors. So some building I went to, and the connection come from the street to the house, the lights, you know, the hooking up to the house, the light that comes from the house, from the pole out to the house,
Okay.
connected on there. And I told him about that you can't put that over the nails, that it'd be chained in or some kind of way, a ground in there where it wouldn't slip out. That year we had an ice storm and all them connections fell out. And the person who was doing charges got mad because I reported, I said, we're gonna call the county inspector, and he came in and turned all these things down. But there's some kind of responsible way that when they did this work on the project, don't you have an inspector to check these things out?
Well, we rely on the county building inspector, as do the other towns in the county. That is the way things have been done. Am I right? We also had now Mr. Earl Howerton is through the Southside Outreach Group, also because he helps us with the grant. He also, you know, is an inspector per se. Is that correct? So in essence, this home had two inspections. Is that correct? The building inspector for the county of Nottoway and the contracted building inspector, Earl Howerton.
This after the work was done?
Supposed to be.
After the work and after the work before.
I guess
Well, they came out 3 weeks ago as well to look at this, and they said that was inconclusive. Mr. Nash.
And I take it they inspected the work that was done, not the work that had been there, the building of the house,
The
construction, or
work that
whatever.
was included on the building permit.
Well, did the work that they did cause the other part to weaken?
I believe the building inspector recently said that he could not conclude why the ceiling collapsed.
Did the building, did
He did find something in the write-up, I believe I read, where there were some fasteners missing. There were some fasteners that were not up to code.
Yeah.
to current code.
Current code.
Back then, it could have been the code, you don't know, I mean,
Right.
depends on what changed.
It's a tough one, folks. This is tough.
Well, the thing that concerns me is the legality of it. When the contract was signed, part of the contract was the town would be held harmless. And that takes us out of the equation. So I have sympathy too, and I feel badly about the loss. But if we do this, it opens us up to every claim of any kind, because we were held in the contract. We were held harmless. You help me out here, attorney. Explain what I'm stammering about. I have an ear infection. I'm about to die.
That is correct. And I don't have the contract in front of me, so I can't quote the exact language, but from my recollection, when I read the contract prior to the last meeting, I concluded based on the contract that the town did not have any contractual liability to the homeowner, given the language in the contract.
But also, listen, I also spoke with an attorney. And the attorney also told me that the town of Blackstone paid the contractor. So our only legal refuge would to be to sue the town of Blackstone, because your name and his name is on the check.
You were speaking facts. There's no doubt about it.
Honestly,
Yeah, you are.
I'm sitting here
And
in the corner. I just want to get this. I mean, do we all have to go to court for $1,500? Or do we have to bring someone from out of town in here to blow up the whole project that somebody else that really need it?
Well,
can we just squash this?
let's-
Maybe we can meet in the middle.
Mr. Knight, thank you. Mr. Mitchell, one more point, and then I'm gonna have to let council answer this question.
We're trying to find some way to get these people to agree to get this work done, Philip. I had a hard time getting them to do, a lot of people in just certain communities.
And that Church Street one was a little bit of a tug there.
Yeah, so this is gonna really knock it in the head. If we don't do something about this. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm gonna make a motion to, I have sympathy for them and what's happened to them. And I know we're saying we don't have any liability, but I'm gonna make a motion that we give them, offer them $500 to help them purchase whatever they lost.
Okay. You offer that in the form of a motion?
I offer that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second to Ms. Thompson's motion?
Second.
Mr. Scott is seconded. The question is now before the council. I will quickly recognize Michael Bagley. I've been accused of running New England-style town hall meetings, but I'm glad to do so. Mr. Bagley.
Town council members present. You getting ready to start another project on the east end of town. It's a great possibility that this might happen on that end. Now, just like we said, we don't want to bring any outsiders in here to go at our council members and our own town. We need to look at your own heart. Now, what would have happened if this young lady would have been hurt? You'll be faced with something greater. Right. So you need to think about your heart. Just like we say, everybody don't have the same. Everybody's working people in this room. We appreciate and work hard for what we have. Now, $500, Ms. Thompson, we appreciate that, but I disagree with that. You're not even going halfway.
Thank y'all. Ms. Thompson has made a motion. It's been seconded. Does anyone wish to make a substitute motion or to amend the motion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Scott, who seconded the motion.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Did you vote, what was the no? I didn't miss it. You voted no as well? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion failed 5-2. Is there any other motion that'd like to be made? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the agenda. We now enter into our committee reports, and we'll start with Buildings, Property, and Cemetery. We have our Buildings, Property, and Cemetery Committee.
We handled it all at the previous
Okay.
meeting. So we'll
All right, so
handle the report.
that report was handled October 4th.
Phil.
Yes, ma'am.
Now
Okay.
let me do the report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our next account, which is under separate cover, is the finance plan. Mr. Chairman Green.
I would like the town manager to present the finance plan that he presented to the finance committee.
We initially adopted a financing plan in fiscal year, or for fiscal year 14-15. And if you remember, the finance committee had discussed what are our goals and plans for the next 5 years. And this finance plan will take into account, and there's some recommendations at the very end. But what I'd like to bring to attention is debt retirement, and I'll try to hit the highlights very quickly.
The highlights, yes.
The highlights. Debt retirement, as we all know, the medical center on or about May 1st, 2019 will be paid off. It's an annual $266,000 debt obligation. On or about August 1st, 2019, the town will pay off a $1.2 million bond that was incurred as our share of the upgrades to the wastewater plant. We took those into account. As of October 1st, 2017, the town of Blackstone's total bonded debt, principal $9.879 million, $9,879,705. That is true principal. And the interest on top of that is another $2,126,505.
$2 million?
$2,126,505.
So we're $12 million in debt.
$12 million in debt.
That has not changed much since.
We've taken on 2 bond issues since I've been here. And the 2012 or 13, 2012 when we did the big sewer project, but that was a 0% interest.
Zero.
The predominance of your bonded debt, the big water plant. That's the big boy. That's the one that we refinanced, if you remember, in 2014 and cut our interest dramatically. We went to a fixed 3%. The town of Blackstone's total bonded debt obligation, and I use October 1st, 2019, because that's when those 2 issues will come off the book. Without taking on any more issue, we'll have $8,487,946 of principal, $1,589,114, $1,589,114 of interest. Again, the predominance is still on the water treatment plant, and that takes us to about $10 million. You'll pay off approximately $2 million of bonded debt in the next 2 years. Leases and loans. As you know, we buy a lot of police cars through USDA. They give us grants and such things. We have a garbage truck, 2 police cars, a fire truck, the fire command vehicle you just authorized tonight, and then 2 more police cars have been applied for, and we've been awarded one of them. If all of those are carried through, we will have an obligation of $212,741. General fund requirements, 15% of the annual budget for the general fund. For this year's general fund, it should be about $1,059,000, and we are, as of October 1st, $1 million in general fund, undesignated and unobligated. Electric fund, APPA recommends 120 days of operating expenses. For our current year, electric fund budget is $4,440,150, target amount $1,480,050. And as of October 1st, 2017, you had $552,000 in the electric reserve fund, undesignated, unobligated. And these are pretty much the same numbers we talked about on the 4th. And all being the same, if you remember, Roland Cooch at Davenport recommended a 180-day water and sewer reserve fund, which would amount to $1,262,000. And we have $123,000.
So we're only 10% of what Roland Cooch recommended.
We're short on water and sewer.
We don't even have that because we're saving that up to make that massive bond payment.
That's what was left over.
Really, that's not reserve. That's what's left over from the payment, but you're still banking that money to make that next mammoth payment.
Gotcha.
Now,
That number came from, we made the big bond payment August 1st, and there was $123,000 left in the account afterwards. Okay. If we look at depreciation, your water and sewer depreciated in this past fiscal year, we have a draft of the audit, for fiscal year 17, and, I better put those back on. The depreciation for water and sewer, $658,210, and electric, $124,790. No funds designated for depreciation. Okay, we do have some in the budget this year that we will have to do during the course of this fiscal year, and we will attempt to do both the electric, and I think we got $51,000 in the water and sewer fund for depreciation. If you look at unfunded liabilities, this is one thing that's come down dramatically over the course of the past probably 5 or 6 years. At one time, we had a lot of comp time, we had a lot of vacation time that had built up. We were at about $240,000 in 2012, and that number, I think, because we've capped it and people are taking some time off and doing those kinds of things, comp time, vacation, the FICA associated for all three funds would be $153,836. This is the one that I don't like, total all funds. In 2015, Town of Blackstone initiated a study to determine the cost and priorities associated with the replacement of water distribution lines at Fort Pickett. The study segregated the work into 7 phases. I think your document may say 6, but it is actually 7 phases. The work is prioritized based on age and condition of distribution lines. The first 2 phases will be completed in conjunction with the 2016 water treatment plant repairs and the Fast C project. We're abandoning a significant of the water system out there at Pickett. The 5 remaining phases are estimated to cost $16,198,994. Capital obligations, I don't need to go through all those. These are as presented. These are not budgeted, these are not commitments, these are not obligations, but these are the items that the department has submitted to us in the current fiscal year for capital improvement.
Before you go any further, I want to bring your attention to this $16 million for this water lines out here. When I first got on council in 2006, Billy and I came on together, and we heard Brunswick Avenue sewer. We're going to end up with a consent order, Bob, you know, and we never did anything about it. And we ended up going to the bank, borrowing the money, and doing it. This is the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room right now. $16 million of facing, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but this cannot keep getting punted down the road, because you're going to have a federal judge with us ended up with a consent order that is, you can't fathom how to raise that kind of money.
Yeah, I was always curious on how the town ended up with the water lines without them getting repaired as the sewer project
Sam should have said no
went.
thank you to Uncle Sam on the water plant when they closed Pickett. Said, listen, thank y'all. Y'all condemned us in 42. We're good.
Yeah.
Good luck.
There was you can see that there's, I don't know, $6 million or plus of debt on the water treatment plant with another, this would be a $25 million repair job. So there's some control issues, and I get them. I wasn't here, and can't Monday morning quarterback. I don't know what the thoughts were, but the wastewater plant was given to the town, and they also gave us several $1 million to do the repairs, and they lined the sewer lines.
Right.
The sewer works at a Pickett were a pretty good deal.
Right.
The water deal was not as good, not as solid. We're looking at $25 million potentially after you upgrade the plant.
That was the lead in. That was to make everybody happy. And that was on one hand, and the other
sewer
part,
was good. Water not so
should have taken
great.
the sewer, I guess.
Right. We'll go over the
thing is,
recommendations.
The reason that I've asked the committee to bring this forward is because my fear is that we're going to still be paying for this sewer upgrade when we have to upgrade again.
Right.
So if we don't start putting some money away for depreciation, and we don't start planning for this $16 million beast that, well, no telling what it'll be if we, 10 years from now, if we tackle it, it'll be $30 million.
This is just a plan. It's a very solid plan. What are you asking?
Well, I just wanted to butt in, and I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that this $16 million is not some hocus pocus Harry Potter number. This is
No,
what
it's-
we're staring at, and it's our obligation. There's no way
It's
to
an
shirk it.
engineered figure.
This is what we're looking at, and our council one day is going to have to grab this tiger by the tail. So,
Commander, they're really the only one answer. We're gonna have to do this, just like Dominion and other people do theirs. They're gonna have a portion of our monthly bill
Set aside for Pickett.
earmarked, a percentage earmarked to go into depreciation or reserve or whatever you wanna call it. Because if you don't, we will not accrue the money.
If you look at the first goal, we're approximately halfway getting these reserve funds done. We've been jamming some money in that thing and doing everything we possibly can. And I think by October 1st was kind of a benchmark date that we've been talking through this project, having all these reserve funds done, okay?
well, I want to make a point here.
Mhm.
When you start talking about these unfunded liabilities, I've seen these figures at $700,000 and $800,000, and also we didn't have water deposits. You didn't have deposits
Segregated,
segregated.
right.
You didn't have cemetery funds segregated. You and the finance committee before me did Herculean job
It's better.
of just catching up to ground zero. So I don't think maybe the town, maybe the citizens understood how deeply we were in debt and how bad we are. So this is outstanding. But now we're solvent, but now we've got to start looking for, so we don't need to throw a big champagne party. We just need to get to work.
No, this right here is a downer, because here's what this means, folks. If this, and I don't doubt the numbers in this report, but this report's a downer, because basically what it says is for the foreseeable future, we can't do any fun stuff. We can't, if you really take these numbers at their face value, you can't in good conscience do fun stuff. When I say fun stuff, I mean, we really couldn't justify right now going and building a ballpark if we didn't have one. We couldn't justify and let's face it, the elephant in the room, these numbers right here are saying no armory, no community center. It's bare, basic functions of government. And guess what? Water lines, no one ever thinks about them until your water turns out rusty. It's not sexy. It's a vital core function of government, but it's depressing. I tell you, man, $16 million, and you'll never make that up from Fort Pickett. They're not heavy enough users. It's not like it's a Microsoft out there spending $10,000 a day on water. I mean, this is a downer.
The $16 million, the other things are, things that we can plan for. The $60 million, I haven't even gotten there. We got to figure that out. And if it's depreciation charges that are going to do it, or do we take small pieces, or do we even, and what I'm leaning towards is finding sections of that system that can be abandoned, further sections of the system, just do away with them. Put a plug in the line and just say,
there's no financing plan to take this on.
There's no way.
There is no way. There is no way to take it on.
100% meals tax. You wouldn't get. You
would not.
So I think that we still need to attack that water system and how quickly and how this thing is broken up in like $3 million chunks. I mean, it's sizable. I'm going to pursue trying to do some more abandonment. That's the best way to do it. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to do anything to them. The guard doesn't use them. Let's cut them off, because that's just a source of additional leaks, quite frankly.
And infiltration too.
Yeah. Well, this is water. This is water. So if you look at it, reserves, depreciation, trying to pay off or fund the leave liability. It's unlikely everybody's going to leave all at one time. But as we do with the meter deposits, try slowly but surely. And
can you make folks, and I'm a private company, so it's different. You get 10 days of the occur every year. Use them or you lose them. Can you
we use them or lose them, but we do it on an annual basis. It's not, if you get above 240, you're losing time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this. Take all the politics out of the room. Everybody, there's a lot of folks here that have missions and causes that dear to them. If it's your call only, you didn't have to answer to council, what would you do with the estimated $16,000, $17,000 a month that's going to come in starting on 2019 from Bond Secure? What would you do? If it's just your call only, what would you do?
If I take item number 5, it says beginning in the 2020 budget, revenues from the medical center lease into a capital reserve fund. Amount should be used for general fund capital needs. That's the only general fund debt we got.
Sock it away.
Sock it away specifically for public safety. Because you've got 2 fire trucks of $2 million in your capital improvement plan. A new ladder truck, hopefully we'll get it funded by grant, and then you've got a $550,000 engine. That's also in the capital improvement plan.
Again, I wish the chief were here, because I don't know anybody, it's on tape. If we go out and buy a $1.5 million ladder truck in Blackstone, Virginia, unless it's a grant funded, 100%. We need to have our heads examined. As someone who goes to the fires, I'm telling you right now, the ladder truck has been phenomenal. It's done a great work. But if we go spend $1.5 million for a ladder, we got to have our heads examined. I'm just saying, you can quote me on that.
The capital improvement requests are as presented.
I know.
But there is a $500,000 engine, and I'm not on the fire department. You guys could talk about engine 9, engine 4, whatever it is. I don't know, but engine 3. There is another engine slated for replacement.
I want to keep the meeting going along.
Well, so I think since it's a public recommendation, the Finance Committee votes 2-0 to make the 5 following recommendations to council. Establish October 1, 2019 as the date that all reserve funds are fully funded. Establish this as the primary goal of the 2 upcoming budgets for each fund. The remainder of fiscal year 18, all of fiscal year 19, and the first 3 months of fiscal year 2020 should focus on this initiative. Number 2, include in the budget for this 5-year planning period depreciation costs as reported in the annual audit. Although this may not be fully possible to improve cash positions and eliminate the need to continue financing maintenance and replacement costs. Bullet number 3, beginning with the fiscal year 2020 budget, contribute to each fund an amount that would establish a cash position equal to the unfunded leave liability. This would be accomplished by the end of fiscal year 2023. Number 4, beginning in the fiscal year budget 2020, budget an additional debt service payments to the 2014 water treatment plant refinance bond. Specifically, used a $55,000 annual savings from the 1998 issuance. We've got a bond paid off. Number 5, beginning in fiscal year 2020, budget revenues from the medical center lease into a capital reserve fund. This amount should be used for general fund capital needs, specifically public safety. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Mr. Green has moved that these recommendations be adopted. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Kamak, you're a second. And I guess I'm asking, I may be stating, I want to make sure. These are basically, this is a plan. It's not a, it's a policy directive of the council. It's not a law or an ordinance. It's someone, a member of council. I know much has been said, and we've had, there are times some of us have wavered, and the finance, the 7-0 vote of a couple years ago has been referred to as, we can, but council members have a right to change their mind. This is not,
Absolutely.
all right,
This
this is a guideline. This is our plan.
Well, I don't see when we face this magnitude of debt and the magnitude of capital outlay that we don't, I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us not to have a plan going forward.
I understand, and that's your opinion.
That's what this is.
I agree, and that's your opinion. It's a sound opinion. I know in the past, when council members have maybe wavered, they have at times maybe been, I'm not gonna say scolded, but like, remember the plan, remember, it's a plan. It's not ordinance. I just want to get that out there, just so everybody can feel free, know what they're voting on.
I want to touch on one thing. I don't want, and this may not put me in good graces with some, but I don't want the town or the citizens or the people who watch this video to think we're shut down for business, okay? I am on a curb-free diet right now. I can't put any curbs in for a while and sidewalks that I like to do, all those kinds of street projects, because I want to accomplish these kinds of things. If you notice, we've been kind of laying off on some of the street stuff. I think until October of 19, we do need to be thoughtful about getting the reserves, because we can't move forward until those reserves are based. We've been talking about this for 7 years now. Let's get these things done. And that's when those debt issues are over with. That's why October 1st of 19 is the date that I can get off my curb diet. And that we can start doing some improvements. I've got some improvements on Amelia Avenue we want to do in the next few years. We want to do some things still, and I don't want the town to shut down. I just want the monies that are earmarked for water and sewer to stay with water and sewer, electric for electric, streets for streets, general fund for general fund. And
Those projects you're mentioning, they're being aided greatly by our VDOT allocation. A lot of these projects you're talking about, that's money we're getting from VDOT.
but not the water and sewer that goes under them. So there's multiple things, but yes, we would logically use some of that VDOT money, and we'll have a meeting on the 23rd, a public meeting again, to talk about the next phase of South Main Street. I don't want everybody to think we're shut down. I don't want the employees to think, God, we'll never get a raise again. I don't want those kinds of things. I just want everybody to be cautious, and every year to maintain these are our goals and work towards these. I think the reserves have to be in place, and I think we have to start earnestly funding for depreciation once we get these reserve funds. Once you do that, do the best we can every year to get the depreciation in there. For example, replacing electric lines. We shouldn't have to take that out of the reserve fund. That should be replaced out of the depreciation cost. Same thing with sandblasting the lime silo. We borrowed money to do that this year. Sandblasting the lime silo should be paid out of depreciation costs at the wastewater plant. Those are the kinds of things that we want to get to.
Can number one be accomplished without any rate increases for?
Yes, I don't think it's appropriate to raise rates necessarily.
We're on that track.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
I'm not asking to raise any rates with any of this.
Setting a standard for come July next year, then we're gonna be hiking up to.
When there's no recommendation to raise
Let
rates
me make it
to do
abundantly
anything.
clear. I do not like raising rates. I do not like raising taxes because I pay them too, and I know we're in a low to moderate income community. However, we have a responsibility to be stewards of the taxpayers' money. And this is a plan to be a good steward. And I would rather us pay cash I remember back in 79 and 80, interest on an automobile was 24%.
That's correct.
And I don't want us to have to borrow 24% to buy garbage trucks. I like paying cash for them. So that's where this is going. I'm deaf in one ear and the other one's stopped up. I'm not yelling at you, Mr. Nash. But I agree with you. That should speak volumes of the good job we've done. That we're actually in October of 2019. We're going to be there. We're getting there.
On that step.
But I'm sorry to say, it was summed up beautifully by the mayor that we don't have any fund money. And
that's what's sad.
I don't do fund money at my home unless bill money's paid, so.
Yep. Mr. Meicher had a point.
I agree with what's being said, but I do not want anyone to think that I'm not gonna be encouraging and including on trying to get a portion of our water, sewer, water, wastewater complex, all of that, set up as part of our billing process, just like we did the 3% that we saved ahead of time. We need to do this now and charge ourselves and say, we're doing this because we're charging ourselves for what we know is going to end up in a consent order or worse. Not wind up like Crew, where they went from $30 water bills
100.
to $100 water bills by a court order. And the only way you do this is if you're truthful to yourself, you look yourself in the eye and bite the bullet and do what you gotta do.
Very good. Any other
Gotta
members?
find your way out of it.
Mr. Nash, I hope you didn't feel I was raising my voice at you. I got this, we have an echo up here from the recording, and I've got.
The reverb. Any other members of council have any comments? My only concern, again, and I'm a message guy, what I heard tonight, what I've seen with my own eyes is very serious stuff. That $16 million out there, I'm not dare saying we're shut down for business, but we can't have a message here where, folks, we are in debt, the debt's gonna get worse, and we got this looming nightmare called $16 million, and then say, oh, it's cool, it's not, it's one or the other. I'm hearing a very serious message tonight about the future obligations of the town. And I'm not, it's like if your spouse came home and said, I lost my job, that's bad news. And then it says, hey, we're still going to do Bonefish Grill tomorrow night. Those messages aren't consistent. I want to make sure that, are we in agreement that we are, is there any way we can get out of that $16 million? Can we say, look, pick it? That was a bad decision. Y'all have it.
I think you'll have an opportunity to get out of it here fairly shortly.
You do believe there's hope?
I think there's a private company that's going to make an offer to buy your system.
But that would include the Blackstone part too, everything, right?
I think it's the whole thing. Yeah, you got to look at the deal, what he's going to propose. I probably would recommend against it. However, you got $60 million of repairs. Now, that's the engineer's estimate. I think we look at how much can we abandon and some